My name is Maria Moretti, and for 40 years, I built an empire with nothing but grit, vision, and the kind of fire you don't learn. You're born with it. Moretti Designs was my life's work, my identity. But on the night we were celebrating the company's 40th anniversary, I watched my own daughter walk up to the microphone and take everything from me. In front of a room full of clients, friends, and cameras, she announced my retirement, a decision I never agreed to. That night, I lost my title, my power, and almost my freedom. But I wasn't finished, not even close. The champagne in my glass sparkled under the ballroom lights, but I barely noticed. My eyes were fixed on the stage, where my daughter Elisa stood confidently behind the microphone. At 35, she looked every inch the leader. Tailored suit, poised expression, that same spark in her eyes I used to see in the mirror at her age. People often said she was the spitting image of me. Maybe. But Elisa wore her ambition more openly than I ever dared. Welcome everyone to Moretti Design's 40th anniversary celebration, she began, her voice clear and commanding. The room, filled with industry elites, investors, and longtime employees, fell silent to listen. This company began as my grandmother's dream in a dusty garage. Today, we are the leading interior design firm in the region. Applause erupted. I smiled, nodding politely to familiar faces, clients who became friends, employees who stood by me for decades, partners who helped us grow. My husband, Paolo, stood a few feet away, chatting with investors. He glanced at me with the same smile that had once made my heart flutter. After 37 years of marriage, it still did. Or at least it used to. As we look to the future, Elisa continued, it's time for fresh vision, fresh leadership. There was a pause, a beat too long. Then her eyes locked with mine across the room, and something flickered in her expression. Was it determination? Regret? Or something colder? That's why I'm pleased to announce, she said, that my mother, Maria Moretti, will be stepping down as CEO, effective immediately. A heartbeat of stunned silence, then applause. I froze, champagne halfway to my lips, certain I had misheard. Step down, effective immediately? We had never discussed this, not once. This wasn't a transition plan, it was a takeover. My smile didn't falter, but inside, I was spinning. Suddenly, Paolo was beside me, his hand firm on my lower back, his grin wide for the cameras. Smile, Maria, he whispered through clenched teeth. Everyone's watching. So I did. I raised my glass. I gave my boardroom smile, the one that had closed million-dollar deals, and said nothing. Elisa was already moving on, talking about the firm's next chapter, its future direction. The crowd cheered again. I stood there, the founder of this empire, being applauded for leaving without ever agreeing to go. Paolo's hand didn't move. It pressed harder, subtle but unmistakable. A warning. I told myself we'd talk later, that we'd sort it out, that this was a misunderstanding, but deep down, something in me knew better. That night, I learned that you don't always see the betrayal coming. Sometimes it smiles at you from across a ballroom. Sometimes it calls you mom. And sometimes it already has the microphone. I barely remember the rest of the evening. People lined up to shake my hand, congratulate me, and ask about my retirement plans. I nodded, smiled, and mumbled vague responses while my brain screamed, "This isn't happening." But the performance had to go on. I was Maria Moretti. I knew how to keep my composure, even when the ground was crumbling beneath me. Back at home, I finally kicked off my heels and dropped the act. Paolo loosened his tie, poured himself a whiskey, and settled into the couch like it was any other night. You shouldn't be surprised, he said casually, sipping like nothing unusual had happened. I turned slowly. We most certainly have not discussed this. Who is we, exactly? The board, he replied. Elisa, me. My heart dropped. The board, Elisa, you, not me. Paolo swirled the amber liquid in his glass. The company needs fresh energy. You've been working yourself to exhaustion, Maria. It's time to enjoy life. I built that company from nothing, Paolo. Nothing. And now you think I'll just walk away like it was a hobby? He stepped toward me, hands outstretched. You're a grandmother now. Wouldn't you rather spend time with Sophia than worry about quarterly projections? I stepped back. Don't patronize me. His face changed then. That softness, real or rehearsed, vanished. In its place, something cooler, calculated. It's about what's best for the company. And I still own controlling shares of it, I reminded him. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then a strange expression crossed his face. Was it pity or amusement? Get some sleep, Maria, he said finally. Everything will look clearer in the morning. But it didn't. By sunrise, I was already dressed, in my best power suit, of course, and driving to the office. I needed answers, clarity, maybe even a fight. What I didn't expect was to find Carmen, Elisa's assistant, nervously sitting at the reception desk at 7 a.m. Good morning, Mrs. Moretti, she said, clearly startled. You're in early, I replied, stepping past her toward the elevator. Miss Elisa asked me to wait for you, she said, fidgeting with her pen. Oh, did she now? I swiped my access card. The red light flashed. Denied. I tried again. Read again. Mrs. Moretti. Carmen's voice was soft, like you speak to someone who's just lost something they love. Your credentials have been updated. Updated? I asked flatly. She hesitated. Deactivated. The words hit me harder than any boardroom betrayal ever had. I'm supposed to escort you upstairs, to collect your personal items. My mouth went dry. This wasn't just a transition. This was an erasure. And whoever orchestrated it wasn't done yet. I followed Carmen through the building like a ghost in my own kingdom. The lobby still displayed the logo I'd designed. The awards on the wall, everyone earned through years of sacrifice and sleepless nights, glinted under the lights. Now they felt like relics from another life. A life someone was trying very hard to erase. I'd like to speak with Elisa, I said, trying to keep my voice even. She's in meetings all morning, Carmen replied quickly. Off-site. Of course she was. I tried logging into my email from my phone. Access denied. I tried the company portal. Same result. I turned to Carmen, my voice dangerously calm. This is my company. Carmen hesitated, glanced around, then leaned in. Mrs. Moretti, you never read the ownership clause when the company went public 5 years ago, did you? My heart dropped. The IPO. The one that gives the board power to remove any executive deemed unfit or no longer in alignment with the company's direction. I stared at her. Unfit? She looked down. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be telling you this. Then she handed me an envelope. Inside was a check, a generous retirement package, blood money. Along with it, a short handwritten note. Mom, I'm sorry it had to happen this way. You'll understand eventually. This is best for everyone. Elisa. Best for everyone. Or best for her. I stood frozen in that lobby, surrounded by the legacy I had built with my bare hands, and realized something chilling. They hadn't just cut me out. They were rewriting the story, casting me as the aging founder who'd stepped down gracefully. A nice little bow on the narrative, one that left no room for questions. He looked uncomfortable. PM Holdings, registered in the Cayman Islands. PM Paolo Moretti. The air seemed to leave the room. I had spent 35 years building a legacy with that man, and now I was standing in the ashes of it, realizing he'd used me, was still using me, as a pawn in his own game. There's more, Roberto said. The company is preparing to merge with Vantage Design Group. That made no sense. Vantage was everything Moretti wasn't. Cheap, profit-hungry, soulless. It's been in the works for over a year. Paolo and Victor Vantage have been meeting weekly. The plan is to keep the Moretti name, but gut the team. Cut the heart out of what you built. And Elisa? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Roberto paused. She's in on it. Every step. The room seemed to tilt. My daughter, my husband, my own board. They weren't just removing me from my company, they were setting me up to take the fall. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat in my mother's old apartment, dusty, quiet, untouched by betrayal, and spread the documents across the kitchen table. The files Roberto had handed me painted a terrifying picture, one that was becoming impossible to deny. The financial transfers were clever, dozens of them, each small enough to slip under the radar. But together, they totaled over $2 million. Most had my digital signature. Some were even time-stamped during the week I was in Milan at a design conference. Others landed while I was by my mother's hospital bed. That was no coincidence. Someone had been watching my schedule, waiting for me to be vulnerable, and they'd used it to slowly bleed the company dry, all while making sure the paper trail pointed directly at me. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from Elisa. "Mom, please come home. Dad says you're upset and I get it, but we need to talk about this transition like adults. Call me back." Like adults? She blindsided me in front of our entire industry and now wanted to talk like we were discussing lunch plans? The pain was raw, but underneath it, something else was rising. Fury. The cold, calculating kind. The kind I hadn't felt since I pitched my first client and refused to let a single man at the table talk over me. Then came the knock at the door. Roberto. He stepped inside, eyes scanning the spread of documents. "They're planning to push the board vote forward, 8 a.m. tomorrow, 2 hours earlier than scheduled. They're trying to finalize the merger before you can act." I nodded slowly. Why now? Why so fast? "There's more," he said. "I've been tracking shell companies. There's a second offshore account tied to a Caymans-based firm, registered under PM Holdings." "Paolo Moretti," I whispered. "And here's the kicker," Roberto said. "Elisa's been secretly engaged for 6 months. To who?" He looked at me with pity. "Marco Vantage." I felt like the ground fell out from under me. Marco Vantage, the son of Victor Vantage, our fiercest competitor, the man leading the merger from the other side. Elisa hadn't just turned on me, she had aligned herself with the enemy. Not for business, for family. The merger wasn't just a deal, it was a dynastic shift, a power grab disguised as progress. I thought back to all the lunches she canceled, all the closed-door meetings, the change in her eyes. I thought it was just stress, responsibility. I was wrong. They weren't just removing me, they were replacing me. And tomorrow, if that board voted, everything I built, every floor tile, every partnership, every sacrifice, would belong to them, unless I did something first. Maria sat across from Carmen in the dim corner of Cafe Luna, the hum of casual diners clashing with the storm swirling inside her. Carmen looked exhausted, nervous, eyes darting to the door every few seconds. "She wanted to make sure I didn't talk to you," Carmen said in a hushed voice, fidgeting with the edge of her napkin. "Your daughter, she said you were unstable." Maria leaned in. "Do I seem unstable to you?" Carmen swallowed hard. "No. You seem like the Maria Moretti everyone knows, sharp, focused, just blindsided." With trembling fingers, Carmen reached into her bag and slid an envelope across the table. Inside were dozens of pages, transfer authorizations, all signed with Maria's name, each one linked to offshore accounts, each one Maria had never seen. "I made copies," Carmen whispered, "just in case." Maria flipped through the paperwork, dates, amounts, account numbers. Some of them matched the audit Roberto had shown her. The rest painted a clearer picture, one Maria wasn't ready to see. "Did Paolo sign these?" she asked quietly. Carmen shook her head. "It wasn't him." "Then who?" Carmen hesitated. "Elisa. She has a stamp, a perfect replica of your signature." Maria's breath caught. Her own daughter. "It started after she got engaged," Carmen continued. "To Marco Vantage." Maria froze. "Marco, as in Victor Vantage's son?" Carmen nodded. "They've been together for almost 2 years. Quiet engagement 6 months ago. No one outside their circle knows." The implications struck like a bolt of lightning. Vantage Design, her company's biggest rival. known for cutting corners and burying ethics under profits. And now, Elisa was planning to merge the two companies through marriage, through betrayal. That merger isn't just a business move, Maria said, her voice low. It's the formation of a dynasty. Carmen nodded solemnly. Victor and Paolo have been orchestrating it behind the scenes. Your removal was just the first step. Once you're gone, the merger passes without resistance. The Moretti name stays, but everything you built is wiped out. Maria sat back, mind racing. It wasn't just about ambition anymore. It was about legacy, about erasure, about rewriting the company's entire history without her in it. What about the police investigation? Maria asked. Carmen hesitated again. That was Paolo's idea. He said if you were discredited, even arrested, you couldn't fight the merger. The board would move on without you. Her own husband setting her up for prison. Her daughter forging her signature, all while planning a hostile takeover wrapped in wedding rings and business deals. Maria clenched her jaw. Why? She whispered. Why would Elisa go along with this? She believes she's protecting the future, Carmen said gently. But it's not just about the company anymore. It's about power. The full picture had emerged. Betrayal wasn't the worst part. It was the precision, the planning, the cold, calculated strategy behind it all. And Maria finally understood. This wasn't just about losing a company. It was a war for everything she'd ever built. And it had only just begun. The moment Maria stepped outside the cafe, her phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Mrs. Moretti, this is Detective Sarah Jones with the Financial Crimes Unit. We'd like to ask you a few questions about irregularities at Moretti Designs. Would you be willing to come to the station? Her heart stopped. They were moving faster than she expected. Someone had already reported her. I'll come, she said, steadying her voice. With my lawyer. She hung up and looked at Carmen, still seated by the window. The fear in Carmen's eyes confirmed it. This wasn't just a setup. It was a full-blown takedown, and it was already in motion. Maria drove straight to Gabriella's law office. Her oldest friend, a former judge turned attorney, wasted no time. You're being set up, Gabriella said after scanning the documents. They're building a case around you using stolen money and forged signatures. If we can't prove this is fraud, you could face prison time. Maria couldn't breathe. But the betrayal cut deeper than legal fallout. Gabriella frowned. Have you seen this clause? She pointed to one of the merger documents Carmen had provided. Maria leaned in. It was a proposed amendment to the company's charter, one that would allow the board to force a buyout of her shares under 3 conditions: mental incapacity, criminal charges, or voluntary resignation. And that's when it clicked. Paolo didn't just want her out, he wanted control of her shares, to silence her permanently. The therapy sessions she'd attended after her mother's death, the insomnia, the grief, he was twisting all of it into a narrative of mental instability, a strategy years in the making. Then came the second blow. Carmen had overheard something. Elisa talking about removing the other documents from Maria's home. Tonight. Maria's stomach dropped. There was something else. Something Paolo didn't want anyone to find. She turned to Gabriella. I have to go home. I need to find it before they do. Gabriella grabbed her keys. You're not going alone. Under cover of night, they slipped into the Moretti home. It looked the same, framed memories, polished floors, but felt different. Hollow, tense. They searched Paolo's office, the master bedroom, the safe. Nothing. Then Gabriella gestured toward the laptop on the nightstand. Maria opened it and guessed the password. On the third try, the date Carmen had said the affair began, it unlocked. And there it was, a folder labeled Contingency. Inside, a proposed company charter, emails, draft statements declaring Maria unfit to serve, clauses detailing emergency transfer of power to the board, a plan to forcefully buy out her shares at a price set by Paolo's allies. Maria's hands trembled as she scrolled. They weren't just removing her, they were erasing her, framing her as mentally unstable, financially corrupt, and voluntarily stepping down. And just then, a car pulled into the driveway. Headlights flooded the bedroom. Gabriella froze. "We have to go. Now." Maria copied the files to a flash drive, grabbed her purse, and slipped down the stairs. Whoever was in that car was coming to finish what they'd started, but they were too late. Maria had everything she needed now. They barely made it out in time. From the shadow of a parked car, Maria watched as her husband entered the house, followed by a woman she didn't recognize. Younger, elegant, poised. The other woman. So it was true. Inside the walk-in closet, Maria and Gabriella held their breath as Paolo and his companion moved through the bedroom. "Just get what you need and let's go," the woman said. "I don't like being here." "It'll just take a second," Paolo replied, heading straight for his laptop. "I need to see what Maria found." Maria's pulse roared in her ears. She watched through a narrow crack in the closet door as Paolo opened the computer, confusion clouding his face. "I could have sworn I locked this." The woman hovered. "You think she was here?" "She's not stupid," Paolo muttered, scanning through files. "If she accessed these documents—" "Victor won't move forward if there's any legal risk," the woman warned. "He will," Paolo snapped. "The board trusts me. They'll believe Maria's having another breakdown." Another. The word hit Maria like a slap. The grief therapy after her mother died, the late nights, the private sessions she'd needed to hold it together. He'd cataloged them, weaponized them. He wasn't just building a case against her. He was rewriting her entire mental history. The woman's voice softened. "What about Elisa? Is she still on board?" "She has no choice. She's in this just as deep." Maria's jaw clenched. Her daughter wasn't being manipulated. She was a willing player, a co-conspirator. "What if Maria fights back?" the woman asked. "Goes to the media?" "I'll release her therapy records," Paolo said without hesitation. "Everyone will believe she's spiraling." There it was, the final weapon. Everything Maria had ever shared with him in confidence, every vulnerable moment, every late-night confession, was now ammunition. "This isn't just business to him," Maria whispered inside the closet. "It's personal." Gabriella nodded. "He resents you, your success, your power." Then Paolo said something that made Maria's blood turn cold. "I've spent 35 years being known as Maria's husband. Every award ceremony, every interview. I smiled through all of it. But after tomorrow, I won't be in her shadow anymore." And suddenly, Maria saw it clearly. Paolo hadn't just married her. He'd studied her. And waited. They checked the safe, found nothing, and finally left. Only when the car backed out of the driveway did Maria and Gabriella emerge from hiding. Maria's knees nearly buckled. 35 years, she whispered, and he never once showed it. Gabriella placed a hand on her shoulder. "He showed it tonight. Now we have proof." Maria looked at the flash drive in her hand, then at the empty house. They hadn't just tried to take her company. They had tried to destroy her. But they made one mistake. They thought she'd stay quiet. The lobby of Moretti Designs had never felt so unfamiliar. Maria stood beneath the glass atrium she had designed herself decades ago, the morning sun catching in the steel beams above. Everything looked pristine, untouched, as if nothing had happened. But everything had. Beside her stood Daniel, her ex-son-in-law and, unexpectedly, her final ace. A respected psychiatrist, and the only person willing to publicly challenge Elisa's fabricated medical claims. "You sure about this?" he asked gently. Maria didn't hesitate. "They left me no choice." As they approached the elevators, the guards at the front desk looked stunned. One even stood, stammering, "Mrs. Moretti, we were told you were unwell." "As you can see," Maria replied, her voice cool and composed, "I'm feeling better than ever." The ride to the 7th floor was silent. Just before the elevator dinged, Maria checked her phone. A message from Detective Jones. "Paolo Moretti detained. We'll hold him as long as legally possible. One piece off the board. But Elisa would still be there. The boardroom doors opened and all eyes turned. 10 board members, Victor Vantage, his son Marco, and at the head of the table, Elisa. Conversation stopped. Maria walked in with Daniel and Gabriella at her side. Mother, Elisa said smoothly, masking her surprise, we didn't expect you this morning. You should be resting. Maria met her gaze. I've rested long enough. Victor stood. This is a closed board meeting. This is my company, Maria cut in, and I'm still the largest shareholder. Gasps flickered around the table. I have evidence, she said, placing a thick portfolio on the table, that what's happening here today is the result of fraud, manipulation, and betrayal. Elisa's smile faltered. Gabriella stepped forward. We ask the board to review these documents before proceeding with any votes. Inside, copies of offshore transfers, forged signatures, emails outlining the merger strategy, even audio transcripts Roberto had recorded, Paolo and Elisa discussing Maria's removal. This isn't a leadership transition, Maria continued. It's a hostile takeover, and it's been in motion for years. Victor scoffed. This is just a last-ditch attempt to stop a merger that's best for the future. Daniel stepped forward. I've reviewed the medical reports circulated about Maria. They are exaggerated and, in parts, fabricated. There is no evidence of mental instability, only malice. Elisa looked stunned, her confidence cracking. Mother, she said slowly, you're twisting everything. You just can't accept change. I can accept change, Maria said, her voice calm but powerful. What I can't accept is deceit, fraud, and being betrayed by my own family. A silence fell over the room. Then Roberto stood. As CFO, I confirm the documents are authentic. The transfers were unauthorized. The signatures forged. Gabriella turned to the board. We move to suspend all executive authority from Elisa Moretti, pending full investigation. One by one, hands went up around the table. Maria watched them, her face unreadable. Even Marco raised his hand, his eyes carefully avoiding Elisa's. The vote passed. Maria didn't smile. This wasn't victory. It was survival. But it was hers. If this story had you hooked, we want to hear your thoughts. What would you have done in Maria's place? Drop a comment below. We read every single one. Don't forget to like the video if you found it gripping, and hit that subscribe button for more powerful stories about betrayal, survival, and redemption. Want to be the first to know when the next one drops? Tap the bell icon so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching. And remember, sometimes the people closest to you are the ones you should watch the closest.